Okay, so for the next in our mangrove series, we're going to talk about how mangroves reproduce. And they have a really interesting way of doing it. If you've seen the red mangroves, you may have seen these things hanging off of them. And you might have thought, oh, that's like some kind of tree bean or something. No, it's not. It's actually a baby mangrove. And I'm going to pull one off of here and show you how this works. These are called propagules. All right, so this is the fruit of the propagule. And normally you see fruit on a tree and it has a seed inside, right? And you eat it and then you can plant the seed and you grow a plant from the seed. This is already a mangrove growing directly from the fruit while it's still on the tree. It's a great adaptation because when it's ready and it falls to the ground, this thing is already ready to get going. And we see here is a good example of a propagule that has fallen to the ground, has taken root, and is already sprouting its leaves and good to go. All right, now these tend to be fairly heavy. They hit the ground and then they can start growing from exactly where they hit the ground, which would be, you know, here in this more tidal zone where they're going to have salt water. Now, if say the tide was in and it was really high and this fell in, it's going to float. And that propagule can float on the water for a year. And it has been alive for an entire year. And then in between the time it fell and 1 year, if it finally hits land that's suitable, then it can start growing. It's a great adaptation. Now, none of the black mangroves here in Antigua that I have seen so far have propagules on them. And in fact, it's kind of interesting because there's certain areas where the reds are covered in propagules, like here, and certain areas where we were filming earlier where there's no propagules to be found. I'm not sure exactly what's causing that. But the blacks have a completely different looking propagule. It's the same concept, though, of a live tree growing on the tree. The black mangrove propagules look like big, flat lima beans. They don't look like this. These are like spears. They hit the ground, boom, and they're ready to start growing, okay? And the black ones have that big, flat lima bean shape. And the reason for that is, so when they fall into the water, they will float as far away from the main shoreline as possible. They'll float up during the high tide and get at that high tide line. Because remember, that's where those guys like to live. So they'll get up there and then they'll start to grow. So a little bit different adaptation in the life cycle of these two important species of mangroves here in Antigua.